Let's look at the build phase. The next two slides relate to the building of the model. They share a resource finding, a potential policy change, and questions that helped us solicit feedback from principals. You can share your feedback by clicking on the Feedback Item 1 and Feedback Item 2 tabs. Feedback Item number 1 looks at the resource study finding around school size. As shared earlier, small schools cost more per student than large schools. For example, every school receives an administrative aid. As a school gets bigger, the cost of the administrative aid becomes less per student. Therefore, through this lens, a small school is considered more expensive. The same holds true for other one per school allocations, such as principal and clerk, among others. We want to make sure that this spending is resulting in a strong student experience. A potential policy change. We would like to identify what adequate funding for small schools means and allocate resources based on student need rather than on staffing ratios that do not necessarily take student need into account. We want to hear from you about two different categories of allocations at schools. Allocations that should be consistent across all schools, regardless of school size, and one that should be based on student need. You can find this slide and the opportunity to provide your answers to the questions by clicking on the tab Feedback Item 1. Feedback Item number 2. The resource study findings show that a total per student spending varies across schools, even after adjusting for the varying concentration of student needs in schools. This variation is most pronounced among secondary schools. A potential policy change. As we explore student-based budgeting portion of an allocation, there should be intentional weights attached to student based on student need to fund programs. As a reminder, this allocation will come to schools as flexible dollars to purchase personnel or goods and services. We want to hear from you. Think of 20 students in the school, not necessarily in the same classroom or grade, and additional needs beyond general education resources. That group of students needs to have positive outcomes. To provide your feedback in the public forum, click the tab Feedback Item 2 and share those additional needs for any of the listed student populations.
Thank you, Annie. And now that you know how to provide feedback, here's a timeline of where we are and our next steps. You can see we are starting our stakeholder engagement with this public input form. During September and October, we plan to summarize all feedback we receive and provide next steps to all of our budget stakeholders. In November, we will finalize our budget decisions and share them with you. And finally, in December and January, budget formulation begins for school year 2021-2022. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to reading your comments. Remember that this forum closes on September 4th, and we look forward to hosting 2 public sessions in September. We will circle back and share what we have heard from you and provide our next steps and updates.